Well, hello, and welcome to the Brian Hornback podcast. This is going to be an episode that really wasn't planned because those of you that have been following the first five episodes know that I've been basically coming on here on Tuesdays and Fridays. But this is actually going to be posted on Sunday night, November the 21st, I believe it is. And it's the eve before the Knox County Board of Health meets tomorrow. They had a meeting on Friday night really just to discuss the surge that's going on with the pandemic in this community in Knox County, Tennessee. And so they're going to be meeting tomorrow, beginning at 5 o'clock. You can watch that on ctvknox.org, or you can go to the Knox County, Tennessee YouTube page, and it'll be streaming there as well via Zoom. They're going to deal with three resolutions tomorrow night. One is a resolution that just talks about just the limitations and what it basically calls for. And I'm looking at it right now. It's the COVID-19 risk reduction guidelines. It's residents are urged to restrict all non-essential activities to the greatest degree possible. Organizations, businesses, and residents should adhere to the guidelines set forth in the Tennessee Pledge, as well as the governor's executive orders, which include staying home when asked to isolate or quarantine by a medical provider or the health department. Residents should continue to follow the 5 core actions at all times, even when around close associates and friends, because these familiar situations are often when community members are their least diligent. And those 5 core actions are wearing cloth face coverings, maintaining physical distancing, washing hands, cleaning frequently used surfaces, and staying home when ill. It goes on to say that in addition, residents should maintain at least 6 feet, remembering farther is better, of physical distance whenever possible when around those not in one's household. Avoid all activities that require the removal of a cloth face covering of at least 6 feet of physical distance cannot be maintained, including eating and drinking with people not in one's household. This does not include seeking medical care. Wear a cloth face covering consistently and correctly when around those not in one's household, whether indoors or out, especially when 6 feet of physical distancing cannot be maintained. Refrain from attending, hosting in-person meetings when 6 feet of physical distancing cannot be maintained. Follow all guidance from the state of Tennessee regarding nursing homes and long-term care facilities. Minimize non-essential travel. Employers should allow working from home whenever possible. Avoid social gatherings of 8 or more people. Avoid close contact with people who are sick and distancing oneself from others, especially those who are at high risk of getting sick, including in particular older adults and persons with serious chronic medical conditions. Practice good personal hygiene, including washing hands, especially after touching any frequently used item or surface, avoiding touching the face, and disinfecting frequently used items and surfaces as much as possible, and show compassion to others, especially workers and business owners, even when disagreement about the guidelines or safety precautions. That's the one, okay? Then this other one is this is going to be called the social gathering limitation. And it's, these are proposed, okay? These are not... These have not been voted on yet. This is what the Board of Health is going to debate tomorrow night. Now, therefore, the Knox County Board of Health, by virtue of the power and authority vested in it to protect the general health and safety of the citizens of Knox County, does hereby declare that a continuing public health emergency exists in Knox County due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the recommendations of the White House Coronavirus Task Force report and guidance from the CDC, limit the spread of COVID-19, adopts the following regulations. These regulations shall be decided as the COVID-19 social gathering limitation. And it goes on to The words, terms, and phrases used in this regulation shall have the same meanings ascribed to them in paragraph 3 of the COVID-19 face covering regulation that was adopted on July the 1st, as well as those ascribed additional definition in paragraph 3 of the Board of Health's regulation. Curfew regarding the sale or consumption of alcoholic beverages in certain establishments, except as provided in paragraph 5 of this regulation. All social gatherings of more than 8 persons aged 12 or older at any given time within Knox County, other than gatherings consistently exclusively of persons residing in the same household, are prohibited. A social gathering is defined as an event, assembly, or convening that brings together multiple people individually or from several households in a single location, whether held indoors or outdoors, in a commercial venue or public place, at the same time in a coordinated fashion where a significant purpose is to interact with others for purely social purposes, such as a family reunion, party, barbecue, picnic, or a club meeting. Except as provided in paragraph 6, all public or private gatherings of more than 8 persons aged 12 or older outdoors at any given time within Knox County, other than gatherings consistently exclusively of persons residing in the same household, are prohibited if that 900 square feet is entirely or partially within 30 feet of any restaurant, club, or other business of any kind which either sells for on-premises consumption or permits on-premises consumption of alcoholic beverages or beer as they are defined under Tennessee law. Paragraphs 3 and 4 shall not apply to any of the following: nursing homes, retirement homes, long-term care facilities, or assisted livings, but persons who own, manage, operate, or otherwise control any nursing home, retirement home, long-term care facility, or assisted living facility are encouraged to limit gatherings consistent with the provisions of this regulation. Places of worship, weddings, and funerals, but persons in such places of worship are encouraged to limit gatherings consistent with the provisions of this regulation. Private dwelling places or residences, but persons in those places are encouraged to limit gatherings consistent with the provisions of this regulation. Places owned, leased, or managed by the government of the United States, the government of the state of Tennessee, or any branch of Knox County, Knoxville City, or the City of Farragut governments, or the Knox County Public Building Authority, including but not limited to jails, municipal buildings or offices, courthouses, and or courtrooms. But persons in such places are encouraged to limit gatherings consistently with the provisions of this regulation. Public and private schools, but persons in such places are encouraged to limit gatherings consistent with the provisions of this regulation. Waiting areas or terminals for public or common transportation, but operators of and persons in such places are encouraged to limit gatherings consistent with the provisions of this regulation. And healthcare facilities, but operators and persons in places are encouraged to limit gatherings consistent with the provisions of this regulation. And gatherings for the purpose of political protest or activity or expression of First Amendment rights, although participants and organizations of such activities are encouraged to limit the gatherings consistent with the provisions of this regulation and to observe social distancing and other protective measures. And individuals experiencing homelessness, who may include individuals in shelters and homeless encampments, shall not be subject to this order, but are encouraged to follow the CDC guidance on social distancing and hand hygiene. A person who knowingly fails to comply with any provision of this regulation may be subject to such orders and or penalties as provided by law, including but not limited to the penalty provided in Tennessee Code Annotated 682602. A person who owns, manages, operates, or otherwise controls any indoor or outdoor public or private space in Knox County who knowingly fails to comply with any provision of this regulation may be subject to such orders and or penalties as are provided by law, including but not limited to the revocation, suspension, or imposition of conditions on licenses or permits provided in Tennessee Code Annotated 682609. The Knox County Health Director may issue orders, request injunctions, and seek other remedy available at law or equity to require compliance with this regulation as provided in the Tennessee Code Annotated 682608 and as Knox County Health Officer as provided in Tennessee Code Annotated 682609. The Knox County Board of Health requests and authorizes all officers, including constitutional and charter officers, boards, commissions, departments, offices, and agencies of the Knox County government, the city of Knoxville, and the town of Farragut to cooperate with, aid, consult with, advise, and coordinate with the Knox County Board of Health, the Knox County Health Director, and the Knox County Health Department in furthering the intent of enforcing, explaining, and clarifying this regulation, consistent with Executive Order Number 38 issued by the Governor of Tennessee on May the 22nd, 2020, is extended most recently by Executive Order 67 issued by the Governor of Tennessee on October 30th, 2020. This regulation shall not be construed as regulating the provision of medical, dental, or oral procedures, places of worship, or nursing homes, retirement homes, long-term care facilities, or assisted living facilities. This regulation does not alter, limit, or abridge the order's requirement that persons who test positive for COVID-19 or who are suffering from COVID-19 symptoms shall stay at home, except to receive medical care until satisfying the conditions set forth by the CDC for discontinuing home isolation. This regulation does not alter, limit, or abridge the order's requirement that an employer, through its supervisors or appropriate management personnel, shall not require or allow an employee who the employer knows has tested positive for COVID-19 to report to work until that employee has satisfied the conditions for discontinuing home isolation under the CDC guidelines. The intent of this regulation is to ensure that no more than 8 persons, other than persons residing in the same household, congregate at any given time for social purposes within Knox County in order to protect the general health and safety of the citizens of Knox County during the COVID-19 pandemic. This resolution shall be liberally construed so as to further this intent, and all provisions of this regulation shall be interpreted to effectuate this intent. If any provision of this regulation or its application to any person or circumstances held invalid, such invalidity shall not affect other provisions or applications of this regulation, which can be given effect within the invalid provision or application, and to that end, the provision of this regulation are declared to be severable. This regulation shall remain in effect until 12:01 a.m. December 2020 and may be extended by the Board of Health if indicated in the current data. The order shall be effective from 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on November the 25th and shall remain in effect until 12:01 Eastern Standard Time on December the 10th. Then the last resolution, that was a lot of legal jargon. But I want to be sure that you're getting, I'm not bothering to read you the whereases, I'm just reading you the now be therefore. And the last one is the COVID-19 restaurant occupancy limitation and early closure regulation that they're going to be discussing. And again, this one, as I said, is the restaurant occupancy limitation and early closure regulation. And it starts with the number 2, because I'm not going to read you the now therefore, because we've already covered that in a previous one. And the number 1 just names what the resolution is, the regulation is. So the word, terms, and phrases used in this regulation shall have the same meanings described in them in paragraph 3 of the face covering regulation. And there's no need to go through all that legal jargon. So, in 2A, all restaurants, bars, and similar food and drink establishments, including nightclubs, will limit their capacity to 25% of occupancy based on Tennessee's Building and Fire Code and keep at least 6 feet between parties not from the same household. All restaurants, bars, and similar food or drink establishments, including nightclubs, shall close for on-premises consumption and activities at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and not permit the on-premises consumption and activities to resume until 5 a.m. the following day that they are open for business. They may remain open after 9 p.m. only to offer drive-through, pick-up, carry-out, or delivery service for food or drink, and persons are highly encouraged to use such drive-through, pick-up, carry-out, or delivery options to support such business during this emergency. So when you hear that they're going to mandate that the restaurants close at 9, that's not entirely true. They are mandating that they close for on-premise consumption, but drive-thrus, carry-outs, curbside pickup, and delivery is still an option from 9 p.m. until they would normally close. But But also paragraphs 2A and 2B shall apply equally to the outdoor areas, land, property, and or facilities of all restaurants, bars, and similar food or drink establishments, including nightclubs. What that's saying is that on the outside where there's patios, they're going to be limited to 25% as well, as I read it. Okay, let's just clarify as I read it. Activities shall be construed to include the sorry about that. Activities shall be construed to include the work of employees, contracted personnel. So it allows for them to stay and clean. It does not apply to nursing homes, retirement homes, long-term care facilities, assisted living. It does not apply to places of worship. It does not apply to any government building, anything owned by the government. So that's basically it. That's what they're considering. And again, that would, if that's passed, will go into effect at 12:01 Eastern Standard Time on November 25th. So the big deals are that they're encouraging folks to stay at groups of any groups of 12 years or older to be at 8, unless it's, obviously if you're like the Bates family up in Lake City, there's 19 of them, and some of them have gotten married. Obviously, most of those are in the same household. So if it's in the same household, the number doesn't really matter. It only matters if you're dealing with two families coming together. They want you to limit to 8. And then on the restaurants, it's closing at 9 to on-premise consumption, but drive-thrus, carry-outs, curbsides, delivery is still an option. So the board will meet at 5 o'clock on Monday on ctvknox.org. It'll be live streamed on there. It'll also be live streamed on Knox County's YouTube channel. And obviously I'll be watching it as well. And so there may be another reason to have another Brian Hornback podcast to let you know what the changes are going to be. I do appreciate those of you that have started watching and listening to the Brian Hornback podcast. I appreciate feedback. Brian@brianhornback.com is the email address. And I do encourage you to check out my website on a regular basis, brianhornback.com. And I look forward to talking to you all at another time this week. And you all have a great one. And let me know what you think about these possible changes to the regulations in Knox County. Y'all have a great one.